Evening. I'm Dr. Lois Rosado, and the moderator this evening had a family emergency, so he couldn't be with us today. Anyone joining us, I thank you for being here on behalf of the Greenbelt Black History and Culture Committee. One of our panelists is having technical difficulties, and the other one is learning how to Zoom in. So we'll get them both shortly. I'm sure they'll be joining us. But in the meantime, I would like very much to thank all of the people that are here with us, especially Charise and Keyonna Jones. Hope I still said your name correctly, because can't stand people messing up names. So what we're going to do, the process is we will ask a series of questions to right now our one panelist, and we will ask her to bring in her background and bio information as she's answering, because I'm sure a lot of it has to do with why she is doing what she is doing right now. I will say that she did attend the University of Maryland journalist program, yes, and she has been awarded the Edward R. Murrow Award, so she has some serious backgrounds and wonderful. And she also has her master's degree. So the questions that we have, we're going to have a conversation. And this conversation will start with, it's not easy being an entrepreneur. And it's not, it's a journey to reach the point where you say, this is what I would like to do. So what was your vision and journey to want you to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, this was never my plan, actually. It just happened to happen that way. But for me, it makes a lot of sense because my dad is an entrepreneur. And so I've been around business my entire life. So my father is from Macon, Mississippi. My mother is from South Carolina. And so I'm the only city baby. I was born and raised here in Southeast DC, which is where I do a bulk of my work and my art. So I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also an entrepreneur, which I tell people that's like I do art full time. So it's a mix of two things. So yeah, how it started, like I said, I grew up around my dad and all of his many business adventures, some of them more successful than others, but watched him do the whole process. And I think a lot of it came from the lack my father had growing up. He was very poor in Mississippi. He tells me all kinds of crazy stories, down to like having to freeze a bee and tie it up so that he could have something to play with. So I think the lack of him, the things that he lacked gave him that motivation, that push. So when he finally got to DC, it was just like, no, this is what I want to do. And I really want to have, my father is an Aries, and I don't know how much y'all in the horoscopes and all that type of stuff, but he's a serious man. So when he goes places, he likes to put his footprint and make sure people know that he was there. So yeah, I was a little baby assistant for my father for years and all his different businesses. He got really planted in the city council. I'm a city council baby. That's how my parents met. So also being able to see how politics and business work and how you can leverage and get resources off the backs of the government, especially in the nonprofit lane. I think that's how it started. So the nonprofit that I have now is Congress Heights Arts and Culture Center. We are a full function art gallery, but we also offer classes and workshops, and we serve as rental space to our community. And so the interesting part in that is the building that we are located in, my father used to live in, my siblings grew up in, then he transformed it into his own business space, and instead of a residential space, turned it into a commercial space. And then I was able to get my hands on it in 2015 and create the art gallery. So it's a lot of legacy there in terms of resources, in terms of knowledge, and just, following in the footsteps of my dad.
Well, your dad obviously provided a lot of guidance, or at least a model for you. But in still becoming an entrepreneur, did you have to write a business plan? Did you access banks? Did you do investment financing? How did you get
Right.
the seed money to get started?
I tell people all the time that the center itself, that's what we affectionately call the center. It self-manifested. So I mentioned earlier, I was born and grew up in Southeast DC. And again, there's so much now that I'm realizing there's so much of a story that like my story mimics my dad. But there were so many things that I lacked, especially I said I grew up as a weirdo because I didn't realize at the time that I was a creative. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have teachers. I didn't have any models to tell me that you're just a creative person and you like art. Not until my mother took me out of Southeast and I was able to go to school in Georgetown where they had all types of resources and tools, and I started learning and really, really loved art. Got away from it a little bit, and my first husband, we're not together now, but still business partner because he works in the art gallery as well as our lead artist. He brought me back to art because he had done fine arts, went to school for arts and everything. I had gotten away from arts. But then I remembered how much I actually really loved art. And then a little transparency here, I got into a very dark space with myself, right? And realized how much art was healing. And then we started realizing that we could use it I started realizing that we could use it as a healing tool within the community, right? And so in trying to support Sean and his art, that's kind of how it happened. My father left out of the space that we're in now to go across the street. It's like a conglomerate of businesses where we are. And so my father moved across the street and the house became empty. At the time, I had just left the radio station because it was really hard trying to work at a radio station and have a toddler. It just was not working for me and I didn't want to do it anymore. So my father let me come work with him part-time doing property management, which I hated to, but it was a job. And he moved across the street to make this bigger office, and it left the house open where we are now, the center. And at the time, Sean was looking for space for his art. And I was like, well, why don't we just do art gallery? And my dad was like, people in Southeast, they don't care about art. Like they have too much to worry about. They're trying to keep food on the table for their kids and everything. They don't have a value. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll do classes and workshops and we'll teach them. We'll teach them the value of art, not just for self-expression, which we definitely need what we go through in our area, but also as a income, right? Like you can live off your passion. So he was like, okay, that's cute, but still wasn't the businessman. He still wasn't liking it. He was like, it's not going to be lucrative enough. So I said, okay, we can add and keep the rental property stuff that he does. And so that's how we became this 3-tier of a center, right? But at that point, no, I had no vision. I had no business plan. It was just, like I said, it just self-manifested. It was what was necessary to happen. Now, how I really got into the business mode of it, we kind of skipped some steps because my dad already had a nonprofit. And so we did what you call a DBA, which is doing business as, and I got under my father's business. And that's how I was able to get the nonprofit status without having to go through the whole paperwork and everything like that. So, yeah.
But can you share with us some of the barriers you experienced when you started? Because even though even though you were able to go under your father, and even though you were able to sort of piggyback off of what he had already produced, you still had challenges.
Yeah,
and I had barriers, and not only that, but those barriers, some of them are probably ongoing. So especially, for example, with the pandemic. So how did that manifest?
Yeah, so nothing comes without a struggle. Unfortunately, nothing good, anyways. So one of, I think, the biggest things. So I'll start with, first of all, my father definitely appreciates art, but when you're an artist and it is a lifestyle, it's just a whole different thing. So my father being the businessman and me being the artist, sometimes we just bump heads just because of that. Like our vision, our perspective is completely different, right? So sometimes that was just my biggest was a bigger barrier in the beginning when we were still trying to get our feet off and trying to create what we wanted. And I had this big vision, but he's still trying to do his business thing. And I'm just like, no, these are two different things. Like, we can't, no. So that was a barrier. And sometimes we still knock heads. We got to sit down. It's like, now that we've been doing this for a little bit over 5 years, we know how to communicate with each other. We've gotten a little bit better at that. The other thing that I definitely is an ongoing struggle for me is I'm a one-woman band. So that means I handle everything in there. That's from emails, that's the website, that's the rental contracts, that's anything that you could think of that comes out of this nonprofit. I'm pretty much doing it, including grant writing, which is a monster in itself, right? Being able to, when I wanted to finally find people to help me, the whole staffing process, right? Of finding people that you think align with your mission and align with your vision. Finding people that are worth the effort, right? I mean, it doesn't sound good that way, but some people just come in, I've had it happen. People come in, sit on their tails, don't have no deliverables, and meanwhile, I'm paying you, right? And so we're a nonprofit and we're small, and it's like, I can't take that chance. So then sometimes that's most of the reason why, like, I'd rather do it by myself because I know where I am in things, right? I mentioned grant writing and just being in DC and the politics of things. It doesn't make always easy. The process of getting grants can be very overwhelming, especially being one person that's doing it and getting the paperwork and having the right papers and the actual writing and getting the proposal together. That is challenging. Tax season sucks. Individually as a person, everybody knows that. So as a business, it's like times 10. And then also just being where we are and the mission and what we're trying to push, which is art in the hood. And like I said, there's so many things that we worry about where we are in our community. So sometimes it's very hard to really connect with the audience that we want to connect with, like the things that we're trying to bring. It can be hard to really get the momentum started. So there's a multitude of things, but I remain really grateful in it because the things that we do manage to make happen and the people that we do manage to connect with, it is so worth it, right? Like once we finally get there and once we end an event or people come and see the space and they're just blown away, it's definitely worth it. And so, yeah, also like you mentioned, the pandemic has been really hard because I tell people all the time that haven't been to the center, it's too much of a vibe to like try to make that virtual. It's just really hard to do. Like we are a space that you come in, that you like that you feel, and it's really hard to make that translate, during the virtual in the virtual space. So we've been trying to figure out different ways, especially just with the laws in DC, which has changed up today, which I don't know will make it either easier or harder. I don't know, but there's a lot of things that we face. Hey, Mr. Sidney.
I'm going to introduce our next folks that are here. Sheila Edmondson, is here, and Sheila, of course, is the let me get this correct, Procurement Technical Assistance Specialist with the District of Columbia Technical Assistance Center. And Sydney Moore has joined us, and Sydney is the president of Syds Tires in Lanham. So I'm going to give Keyonna a little break while she gets some water, and we're going to start with Sheila. Sheila, your journey is a little different because you're in procurement, which means you're providing some technical assistance to small businesses. What happened to Sheila? Oh, she disappeared again. Okay, well, when she comes back. Sid, we're starting with you.
No problem. And I will say, only for you, this is the very first Zoom meeting I've ever done in my life.
Oh my goodness.
Only for you, Dr. Rosado.
Well, I'm glad you could join us because, just to give everybody some background, Sid exercises every morning. He wears this weighted vest. He carries this big, heavy ball, and he walks around Buddy Attic Park. So one morning we stopped to chat, And he started giving me history lessons. I knew, but I let him go on. I knew a lot of the history, but this brother has so much information. And Sid, you're also part of the Black Businessmen's Association, but you got started when, what inspired you? What was your vision to become a business owner?
My family has a history of business ownership, both on my mother's side and my father's side. My mother is from Tennessee. My father's from Maryland. I grew up in Maryland, and so I knew about my grandfather and the farmers that were on his side of the family. As a matter of fact, in my business right now, I have a 1930s, one of the first John Deere tractors that John Deere ever made. And it was my grandfather's tractor that he purchased, had to be in the 30s. My dad had it, took it after my grandfather passed away, and unfortunately my dad passed away in 2018. I then took it. It doesn't work, but my objective is to take it and to fix it up and to take it around to various shows, farm shows, whatever, and even school shows, and show young African-American kids and white kids that not everybody that grew up in the 30s that was Black was poor and broke and could not afford themselves. Because a lot of them don't know that they know one history of Black entrepreneurship, but they don't know about the Blacks that had created the entire middle class in the South. They don't know about Madam C.J. Walker. They don't know about the plethora of Black entrepreneurs that were in the South, or even throughout this country prior to the in the earlier days. So that experience, being born into that experience, gave me a sense on my mom's side and my dad's side. My mother's family was one of the founding families of Fisk University and Meharry Medical Institute. So the combination of both of those families, I was born with the spirit of entrepreneurship. I just didn't know that I was going to end up in the tire business. I knew after college that I did not want to work for anybody but myself. And I actually ended up in the tire business for at the end of the day, for a very simple reason. You can do many things on your vehicle, but you cannot drive on 3 tires. Your check engine light can come on and you can still drive. You know, you can have a leak in a hose and you can still drive. Your air conditioner can go off. But if you have a flat tire, you cannot drive. So I figured on any given day, a certain percentage of people were going to have a flat tire, and they were going to have to come to me. And that's basically how I got into business.
But when you got into the business, did you design a business plan? Did you have to go seek investors? How did you get the funding to get started?
My mom and dad told me I had to find something to do. And, Mike Tyson had I'm sort of paraphrasing a little bit, but there's always a plan, whether it's written down whether it's written down on paper, or whether it's in your head. It doesn't really matter how it manifests itself. There are plenty of people that can write down every plan. Implementation is the key. I was never one to necessarily write something down on forms of paper. But I knew, and maybe this is unique to me based upon my experience or wanting to be an entrepreneur, I kind of knew how to develop it and to move on. I knew one thing. I knew that if somebody had a flat tire, they had to get a tire. And I knew that I had to have a tire for them to buy. So my first objective was to find tires for people to buy, so that if they had a flat or they needed a tire repair, I could go about, servicing the customer. Mike Tyson has a famous saying, believe it's attributed to him. He says, in a boxing match, the best plans go out the window after the first punch.
But you still had to get funds to buy your tires. So how did you go about getting the funding to start your business?
I went to salvage yards, junk. And at that time, selling used tires. At that time, there was not a large demand for used tires. As a matter of fact, salvage yards would take a car that was wrecked, they would strip the car down, and they actually made more money on the alternators, the engine, the parts, and they would take the tires and set the tires aside. Well, I would go to a junkyard and say, do you have any tires that are sitting aside? And they say, yeah, go in that pile. Because remember now, tires can be considered an environmental hazard. So a lot of junkyards at that time were happy that we would come for maybe $5 a tire and take their tires from them, because that was a fee that they would not have to pay to take that tire to the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
Forbid, I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of or seen a tire fire that takes place. So I would go to a junkyard or to a salvage yard, and basically for $4 or $5 a tire, they'd let me scroll through the pile, and I'd take whatever ones I want. I'd bring the tires back to a location, and I would sell them. That was 1989. And eventually I saved up enough money to have my own business, my own spot, and I rented a location, and then I started building from there. All businesses are unique. Some businesses require financing. Some businesses require a lot of financing. Mine was one that didn't require a lot of financing. If you had a little bit of discipline, you could buy a tire for $5 and sell it for $15 or $20. Well, you're making a 400% profit. You don't really need a lot of financing if you can buy a product, low, and then sell it with that type of margin. So I always stayed away from financing or going after getting other people involved in my business if I could, simply because this is just for me, I can't speak for everyone because all businesses are different. Once you let someone finance, they own they're part owner of your business. Mm-hmm. If the economy turns south, or if you have a disagreement with the financing person, they can make it very difficult for you, or they can they can come get your money. So I was a firm believer, and I would just build my own, and whatever I had for the day. I mean, I used to always say, I may end the day with $5, but that's my $5.
Okay.
And I just built, but I will say, that was a direct decision made by me. I had plenty of opportunities from people who wanted to invest with me. Decision not to, because I wanted to maintain control. Partnerships can be very difficult. Not just between the two partners, but you may have two partners that may have the same vision. But let's say one partner has a family, the other partner doesn't. Well, if a financial issue occurs with the other partner's family, you may have decided beforehand, well, we're going to set aside a certain amount of profits for X number of years to put back in the business. Well, what happens at 2 o'clock in the morning if your partner says, well, I know what we said, but can I have my portion now because my spouse wants to go on vacation, or because I have to pay a medical bill? Then you've automatically thrown a wrench into the situation. So I tried to stay away from that. And I always felt as though I would do best if I controlled the resource, even if it meant that I did not make as much money as quickly, but I knew that whatever money I made, it was mine. And I was truly going to be my own boss. That model does not fit for everyone. There are some people that, obviously in some businesses, where you have to have a partner. But in mine, a small business, starting small, very hands-on, because in the tire business, automobile business, it's very important for the owner to be involved with all the changes in technology. So I knew I was never going to have multiple locations, because the quality control was just difficult being in 4 or 5 places. So in my unique situation, it was best for me. I felt it was best for me to maintain control of the of my business.
Thank you. Sheila, you have been listening to both Keyonna and Sydney. So you, as a procurement person and a person who, did we lose her again? Ah,
Here.
I tried to bring you in before and we lost you. You've heard both.
Mhm.
Both have you very unique businesses, right? So as a procurement person, did I lose her again? Oh, as a procurement person, what would be some of your suggestions for their businesses, but also other kinds of businesses that you work with?
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Dr. Rosado. Some of the things that I heard, especially with Mr. Moore, prior to working with the government, I worked with small business, and I've had several businesses of my own. My family, full of entrepreneurs in our hometown. We're from Georgia. We have the family funeral home and this and that. In our little town, we had the family store. So, I've watched my family, exist as entrepreneurs all of my life. But my cousin has an IT firm, actually, not in Greenbelt, but in Lanham. And, through working with him and with other small businesses, I've watched small businesses operate successfully as partnerships. And I understand what Mr. Moore stated before with having partnerships, and when there are times when the owners do not have the same vision and they have different financial requirements, and you may need to, be agile and move quickly, and you can't do that in a partnership. And, when you are the sole owner, you're able to move more strategically, quickly. So I definitely understand that. But in government contracting and procurement, what I would recommend, a couple of things. When small businesses contact me, often, they want to know, where can they find the procurement? Where can they find the contracting opportunities? But most of them that are seeking contracting opportunities, their infrastructure of their businesses are not set up to handle a government contracting opportunity, because there are a lot of moving pieces to managing a contract. One, you need to have management of the contract and any of the people on the site. You need to have someone that is well-versed in HR, because what I've found as a program manager on government contracts, or any contract where a business has a core capability, there's never an issue, or hardly ever an issue, with the quality of the work. It's people. The people dynamic is always the most challenging. So having HR in place, your corporate rules and regulations, I find that small businesses slip a little bit there, because you need to have your employee handbook in place. That's so important for government contracting or without, because employees need to understand what the boundaries are, what the rules are, where they can seek assistance, that type of thing. Also, of course, accounts payable, accounts receivable, managing your finances, having someone that can manage your contracts, that understands contracting language and how to negotiate on the behalf of your organization. Let's see. and also having someone that does marketing and business development to increase your brand awareness of your firm, as well as assisting in growing your business. So those are some of the things that I find that businesses, overlook. They want to skip to the marketing and capture process, but you really need to have all of these pieces in place before you pursue government contracting opportunities. Or I would recommend that you go through those processes first. I think that you would have a lot more success.
Well, it's interesting because we did hear Keyonna talk about her hiring and challenges. Sydney, do you have hiring challenges also as part of helping your business to be successful and continuous?
Constantly. What I would first say is Edmondson, that was if I were starting a business in 2021 and I could go back to my younger self, I would spend more time actually looking at the government side. I started a business in 1989. The politics, the dynamics of business ownership, especially in this area, but in the country, particularly for African Americans, Black, different than it is today. More people that are like yourself and others that are in government already in various positions that can be of assistance and can even help a lot of the businesses today. I started in business. Breaking the government wall was very, very difficult, very. And so that is a tectonic shift in just the last 30 years, not to mention the technology. How you get your customers, meeting different people like this. My initial goal in business was to make money on straight retail, make that my core business. And then if I ever decided to go into the government, I would use that as a secondary source of income. Today, I would consider flipping that or making the government procurement process more of my business, because the politics, individuals, the people that are in government that could be of assistance to me are much more, it's a much different social, business, and political environment than it was 30 years ago. And I would not feel as though I'm basically, knocking my head up against a brick wall. That it's a lot different. And I think, where I'm headed with that. So I applaud anyone in government that's working to assist the young entrepreneurs, the young business people of today, because there's a lot of money in procurement. A lot of us don't cross our T's and dot our I's. And you have to do the legwork, because when you're looking at it, when I tell young people, when you're putting together a project and someone's looking at it, they have to be able to justify that project. And the way that they can justify it is by making sure all of your ducks are in a row, everything. So it is up to them to make sure that they don't skip anything, because that makes the job easier for you as you go through the process. Because people are always looking back and looking for ways, once you get a contract, to take it away from you. Because whenever you make somebody happy, if 100 people are bidding on a contract, the person that gets it is very happy, but there's 99 unhappy people. Exactly. And there's always individuals that once they look at the contract, well, then they may look at the procurement officer's work and say, well, maybe she made a mistake. So it's very important that everybody along that process do everything that they can and to cover their, so you have to do it the right way consistently to protect everybody.
Yes, I agree. My day job, I'm a procurement technical assistance specialist for the DC government PTAC. And basically, what we do is and you were right with the timing. It was about 30 years ago in 1985 when Congress formed with the DOD, formed the PTAC program to put in place to assist small business owners with capturing government contracts, because they understand that it is an expensive process. So the PTACs are in place. So there's a PTAC center at the University of Maryland College Park. There's one in DC. There's one at George Mason University in Fairfax. And also, even if you're not interested in pursuing government contracting, but, you know, a quick plug, the government is the largest procurer of goods and services in the world, and they procure everything. So tires, yes, somewhere you can find a contract for tires, even you know, art galleries. I mean, you will find contracts for everything. And so, but even if you're not interested in government contracting, a lot of the PTAC centers are co-located with small business development centers or women's business centers. And there's one in Maryland, you know, there's one in Virginia. So they're all over the country, and they are there to provide services and resources to small business owners, and they're VBOCs for veteran-owned businesses. So these places are here for all of the business owners that are seeking assistance with pursuing, you know, their entrepreneurship at a reasonable or low cost.
How important are mentorships and networking with other business associations or even art associations? I mean, how are they able to, how can they assist? For example, Keyonna, is there a art association of people that you could tap into? I know, Sydney, you're with the Black Businessmen's Association. So, I mean, are those kinds of professional groups or associations critical, and networking critical to developing your business and keeping it sustained?
Yeah, I would say definitely for us, our mission as an art gallery, I always say collaboration over competition is how we thrive, in unity, right? And so especially in Southeast, there's a lot of nonprofits, there's a lot of people that are doing programming, there are a lot of people that want to do things but don't have the space for it, right? And if I have the space and I have all these things that I have to worry about, I could just collaborate with another nonprofit and they can bring their program into the space, and it cuts out of a lot of the legwork and work that I would have to normally do by myself. And it's a win-win relationship, right? There's definitely, I'm very tapped into the Arts and Humanities Commission. That's like where we get our bread and our butter, or we get all of our grants from there. I actually got about 2 to write before the end of the month, but they support us hands down on so many things in terms of the grant money that we get, but they also keep us in mind for different things that are happening during the city. So they'll call us in. So sometimes we don't have to even go the procurement route, because we've already laid, over the 5 years that we've been working, we've already showed ourselves. We already show what we can do. So at that point, we've built the rapport, so they call us anyway. And I'm really grateful for that relationship.
And that's business development right there, because the whole purpose is to build those relationships where you don't have to pursue them, that they contact you, they reach out because they know your work. That's excellent.
Yeah, and so we've been able to do that for the art gallery, but I was also telling you, as an entrepreneur, which is full-time, I'm a full-time artist outside of the art gallery, that I've been able to kind of build my rapport on that as well. And so not only do I get snagged in for our organization to do things, but I also get snagged in as a personal artist to do things as an individual outside of my organization. So definitely, yeah, collaboration over competition all day. It just,
yes, I understand you helped paint the Black Lives Matter sign in the street in Washington.
Those are my little painted shoes right here behind me. Somebody told me I was gonna have to start memorializing my stuff. So maybe let's get into a museum one day. But yeah.
What about you, Sydney?
I think I want to go back to the first question that you had asked me previously, if I may. Finding employees is always very difficult. It's always a challenge. And it's unique, I think, to each business. The one thing that I've learned in the 32 or 33 years I've been in business is that businesses are the same, I think, from the standpoint that all of us have a dream of a level of success, not always financial, not totally financial, but there's other reasons why. But how we get about finding our employees comes about in different ways. And our dream for our dreams for our business. Right now, I have 2 employees that have consistently been with me for the last 32 years. And my industry, the automobile industry, obviously has gone through a lot of changes. One of the things that's made it difficult to expand and find other employees is the young people now are much more interested in high tech than in, the actual nuts and bolts, getting your hands dirty. And that's fine. That's fine. But as I get older, you just create a niche. And so basically, the 3 gentlemen that I have working for us, we probably have combined 180 years in age, but that's okay. We're at the position now where we're organized, we work well together, and we're always on the lookout because there's always that young person that could one day walk into my store and I could just see it in his eye, and then we'll bring him in. We'll bring him in then. But having good employees is always a constant struggle, and we're keeping good employees, because employees have the right to leave. Just because an employee says, I found a better opportunity, it's nothing against you. As a matter of fact, the person working for you may have given them the confidence to go get the other opportunity. And so that person will come up. But trust me, when that person leaves, somebody else will come into place, to take that person's place. So I hope that helps answer your question a little bit about finding, in my business, retaining employees.
And associations and networking?
Well, the great thing about my business is just about every place I go and I give my occupation, somebody's usually there that needs a tire. A cookout, a Christmas party. Rarely do I go someplace and mention I'm in the tire business and somebody doesn't say, I need a couple tires. So I'm very fortunate from that standpoint. But it is important to be out in the community because that's where all the information is. Okay. You have to be out constantly.
What about the association? How is that useful to you?
Well, I'm a member of the Bowie Chamber of Commerce and some other organizations. That's important simply because you have an opportunity on a monthly basis to meet like-minded individuals, even if they're from different occupations. It changes your sphere and circle of influence. You have to be out there and people have to know you. And you don't know where your next business opportunity is coming from. It may come from somebody that has a direct line to you, or it may come from someone that you meet someplace and they're in a meeting a couple of days later and somebody has a flat tire or somebody mentions something about art and then that person happens to have your card, and they give to that individual. One of my best leads for business in the last 10 years has been my Aflac salesman. I signed up for Aflac about 10 years ago, and every couple of weeks, someone that he has talked to selling Aflac has needed a tire, and they'll call me and say, so you have to stay out there. You have to keep yourself, and don't worry about whether it makes sense. Those opportunities will come to you.
As you move forward, how do you envision, or do you get a sense you have a responsibility to the Black community through financial reinvestment? I already heard about hiring. What keeps you going, and how do you see making sure we're pushing each other forward?
Well, I think ongoing investment is to provide a quality service to your customer, regardless of where you live or who they are. I have always been of the opinion that my business was going to be the same type of business, the same equipment, the same quality of service that you'd find anywhere in the Washington metropolitan area. I was never going to, quote unquote, shortchange my customers because, well, you know, I'm in a Black area. No. When you walk into my business, you see the same quality of equipment that you would at a dealer anywhere in the Washington metropolitan area. And I treat my customers consistently the same throughout. You're always looking for opportunities to support people. Of course, sometimes I have, you know, because I'm a small business, we have more personalized conversations. I try to make myself accommodating to individual schedules. So I will stay open later or I'll open up earlier. But more so than just the fact that the community I'm in, the Black community, I do that because as a business, it's just good business. I make money on personal relationships, you know, and I try to maintain those personal relationships and give, but the first thing is I want people to say he gives good service.
Keyonna?
You're gonna get it right, Keyonna.
Keyonna?
So
Keyonna.
it's fine, no worries. Just messing with you. I think for me, I call myself a healing teacher in the sense that I'm healing to teach and I'm teaching to heal. And when we talk about, you brought up the Black Lives Matter situation. I think that's a perfect example of the healing power that art has, right? And this ability to spark certain conversations and create a different perspective. And I say that because when I got that call to do that, I came on a very personal level. If you remember, it was in the hit of the pandemic. Businesses were closed. People were struggling, right? And I was like, okay, if the mayor's calling me, especially for something like this, I know she probably has a budget. So I went on a very personal, internal, reason. But then when we got out there, we all painting and people are watching us and asking what we're doing. Once they realized what we were doing, they were saying, can we help you? I'm like, absolutely. So you see it jump right into a community space, right? And then right after that, it replicated all over the world. That is literally, and that happened in 24, 48 hours. That is literally the power of art for me. I believe that art saves lives. It's for everybody, anybody, every age. I say at the art gallery, we serve ages 5 to 105 because that's how expansive it is, right? So for me, it's my duty to heal my community. I'm from here, born and raised here, still living here. It's a way for me to be a reflection of what can come from my community, right? There's so many things that they say about Southeast and the people in Southeast and what we're not capable of, but we're so special. And I think that's the thing, like we're so special that everybody doesn't get us and it makes you a little nervous, but there's life that has to be spoken into the community. There has to be an investment that comes in the community. So not only do I provide that, just the art and the healing too, but we basically teaching people how to fish, right? Because we're teaching them that if you're an artist, this is how you could make your living off your art, right? This whole starving artist thing is a myth, not real. Doesn't have to be, right? And then reminding them that in this whole process, Black people, we are the innovators and the creators of almost everything and anything you can think about. Now, have things been duplicated and tried to be replicated? Absolutely, right? But we are the originators. So I feel like when we use our art as a healing tool and we remind our people who they are and what they came from and the history of who they are and their location, you feel more empowered. You want to move different. You want to do different things, right? So yeah, that's my investment. And that is also what keeps me going, because it is just like seeing the reflection of myself in my community and then seeing it come back. It's just nothing. And it's with art, like it's fun. So yeah, that's what keeps me excited and keeps me moving, because it gets hard. I mean, I've taught kids that I've lost to gun violence, right? Karan Brown is one of my kids, 11 years old, and he was gunned down right down the street, across the street from his school, right? So using art to teach the kids how to heal from that, how to communicate, how to express, because words don't do it all the time, right? And this is a way to just fill up the community in several different ways. And I'm honored to be a leader in that.
Thank you.
Keyonna?
Before, let me just mention, if anybody has a question, stick it in the chat. Sheila has put a couple of things in the chat. We're gonna show the chat shortly, so please feel free to do that. Sid?
Keyonna, my first business was 800 Southern Avenue, right below, right below, right across the Linda Poland Apartments.
So
Right.
you may know my father. My father's name is Finest Jones.
What's his name?
Finest Jones. Because he was at he did a lot of management at Park Southern right there, 800 Southern for a while. So
I was a little bit below where Tribble, right across from Southview Apartments in that shopping center.
got you, very familiar.
Below Southview. I was there from 1989. I started my business there.
That's the year after I was born.
Okay, well.
He was in Southside when I was when I was getting bottle fed. But I also love that too, though, because that's like the transgenerational learning that you get, right? Of like knowing and understanding how things were for you, and especially what you saying, the whole thing of procurement changing in 30 years and all of that. I mean, and that I think what you were asking about too, Doctor, that is like that's even the forms like this is considered networking. This is considered getting that extra information and sharing between two people. So I love that. That's awesome.
Sheila, when you are giving your advice, do you also feel a special commitment to ensure that the community keeps moving forward in terms of entrepreneurs?
Yes, actually, I'm not far from Keyonna, Ward 7 proud. I am Northeast, so I understand that. I understand that totally. And yes, I work with a few programs to assist supplier diversity within educational and medical facilities within the DMV. So we want to make sure that they increase their use of diversity spend. Also, we do within our agency in DC, which is called the Department of Small and Local Business Development, better known as DSLBD. And we actually have initiatives and startup grants and various things for Ward 7 and Ward 8 businesses. So yes, we definitely do look at increasing and supporting minority business owners, returning citizens. We put a lot of support behind making sure that our small business owners are successful.
What do you mean by returning citizens?
A returning citizen is someone who has spent time incarcerated at some point. So there are programs in place in the District of Columbia because a lot of them had an entrepreneurial spirit that may have been misdirected.
Mm-hmm.
So
everybody can't be Jay-Z, you know.
I like how you said that. That's a nice spin of that. I like that. Sheila.
So basically, they put a lot of support into making them successful small business owners. And you know, I work with a few of them and I love it. Their grind and their work ethic, to some of them, they're like veteran-owned businesses. It's like no other. So I really put a lot of support behind that because I want them to be successful.
Yeah, we work with that program. And also there's another program where they do job placement for returning citizens.
Okay, awesome.
They pay the employees so it doesn't have to be on the business. And so they pay them up to 6 months. And if you like their work ethic and then how they're working with your company, then you can take them on and put them on your payroll. So we definitely work with that same program. We've got a younger one now too for because at first it was a certain age group, but then they realized there were, you know, young people too that weren't in that age group. They were a little younger that still needed that support. So we use both of those programs.
Sheila has put in the chat for anyone interested in attending a free government contracting 101 webinar. You can contact her, Sheila, at novusbusinessmanagement.com. Okay, or follow her on Instagram, so you can get some additional in from there. And job placement. We have a question that says, what program is that? Sheila, I guess this is about your program, job placement for returning citizens. I think it was just explained. Okay.
It's a program within the office where I work in district government, DSLBD. There's a program called the Innovative Education Program. And under that program, they manage Aspire, and that's for returning citizens. And they also manage a lot of other programs for district government startups in the district.
And that program is extremely important because it is a reinvestment in the community and also reduction of recidivism in our communities, which is absolutely fantastic. Gail also put in, consider subcontracting also as an entire government contracting and networking.
Definitely. I agree with that, Gail. And, with a lot of small businesses that are starting, I just find the whole relationship development and building trust part sometimes it's not fully understood, because subcontracting, I have clients that make $5 million a year subcontracting. So subcontracting is really nothing, to sneeze at. It can be very lucrative. So, and it's an opportunity to learn the industry, to learn the organization, to develop relationships, to become a prime, to develop your infrastructure so that you can manage a larger contract. I totally recommend subcontracting, and also belonging to industry organizations.
Yeah, subcontracting can be very helpful in the beginning because it takes a lot of the stress off of you to have to manage like the big stuff. You have that company that comes in and takes over, and then you just have to focus on what you have to do. And then, like she said, it helps you learn the process so that when you are ready to do it, then you can become the main person, and then you can have a subcontractor under you.
Exactly.
Well, before I bring Charise Liggins in to talk about resources that are available for small businesses, especially in Greenbelt, I'm going to ask each of you a question. A person comes to you and says, I am really thinking about starting my own business. What is it that you will say to them? Sydney, let's start with you. You're on mute, Sydney. Can we get good?
Are you willing to commit 10 years of your life, good, bad, or indifferent, to see if your dream will succeed? And how badly do you want your dream? Because it's not your family's dream. It's not your best friend's dream. It's your dream. And how badly do you want your dream?
Keyonna.
Anna.
Keyonna.
It's okay. I would say first, I would ask a couple questions, and two of them would be, what's your vision and what's your mission? I think a lot of people don't really realize they're two different things, right? And so you need to be clear on that when you decide to do that. I would tell you that as cute as it looks that we get to choose our own schedule sometimes, and we can take off, and that we're our own boss and we got control, it's not easy. It is hard, right? Those 8-hour days that you could work and clock in for somebody else, you got to work 20 hours for yourself, right? To make sure that you're consistent and make sure that it's still happening. I would tell them that progress is a process, right? Like, we are in this world that we just like instant gratification. The digital world just makes everything feel like a finger touch. Entrepreneurship is not like that. and it's not linear. It's a roller coaster ride. There's up and down. There's not just a straight avenue and way to do it, right? I would say struggle comes in all process, right? But it's either up to you to say it's not a loss and it's a learn, right? Everything is a learning experience. And I would say good luck, child. Godspeed. Good luck.
Sheila?
Let's see. If someone said that they wanted to start a business, I wouldn't ask them any questions. I would just recommend that they put a business plan together and then come back to me after they started it, and I'll answer any questions. Because for me, what I do on a daily basis is speak to businesses. And one of the worst things that a business owner can do is not follow up. And most of them do not follow up. So if I ask you to put, I'll give you the template. I'll give you some instruction, but I'm going to give you that business plan. I'm going to ask you to put it together, take a stab at it, start doing something toward putting it together, and then come back to me. I want to see how serious you are. Have you put a lot of thought into what it really takes? And if you haven't, putting a business plan together, and not necessarily an elaborate business plan, there are really streamlined business plans, that people can work on. But I think that when someone is really determined and focused to start a business plan will really help them clarify those thoughts and that vision, and it will either encourage them to keep going, or it will help them to realize, maybe this is not for me right now. Let me just put it over here, or maybe let me ask some more questions about that. But that's, I think, where I would instruct them to do next steps, is to work on a business plan.
Thank you. Charise, I'm going to bring you in here to talk about the resources that are available in Greenbelt for businesses. How you doing?
How's it going? Good evening. I'm going to share my screen.
Charise is our economic development coordinator in Greenbelt, so she has some things she's going to share.
Can you all see my screen? All right, great. Thank you. Certainly to the panel, Dr. Rosado and her crew, for putting together this panel to have conversations with businesses. I think it's really important to be able to hear directly from businesses. And so on behalf of the city of Greenbelt, certainly appreciate all of you for taking the time out to share your business journeys, and for Sheila sharing really useful information. So some of this might sound a little bit repetitive, because I think Sheila did a great job of sharing what resources are available. And so I will keep this very brief. One thing that I would sort of add to the conversation about, who to network with or what resources are available, I'd say that, for entrepreneurs, regardless of where you live, to check with your local city to see if there are small business resources, startup resources available. I am surprised sometimes when I meet with either a resident or a new business, and they're like, wow, I didn't know that the city of Greenbelt, had different resources. And so, those resources are often available across communities. And so I would say definitely, seek out those. I mean, in cities like DC, it's probably a little bit easier, but many municipalities, large and small, have those resources. And so with that being said, in the city of Greenbelt, our resources are really to help connect startup businesses, existing businesses to any resources that they need to thrive. And we do it locally, but then we also sort of share information as well. And so here we, offer one-on-one technical assistance. So if you're a startup, an entrepreneur that's looking to navigate the starting your business, we offer one-on-one technical assistance, and we'll sit with you and, kind of understand what your needs are and try to help point you in the direction that you need. We do business networking events. Because of COVID, we've sort of shied away from in-person events, but I imagine we'll go back to them. We used to host quarterly business coffees, which, a lot of local businesses really enjoy. We send out a monthly business newsletter to help you with, providing and sharing resources about events and, different grant programs or other information. So I think that the website is listed here, greenbeltmd.gov. I'll also put it in the chat, but definitely I would encourage anyone to sign up for the business newsletter. And then we also try to spotlight our local businesses. So if a new business is starting, maybe a restaurant is offering something new on their menu, we try to highlight and share that with the community so that people know what's going on with our local businesses. And then the next page this is not an exhaustive list, but of local resources that as a startup or small business, you can tap into essentially to help you with, again, anything from, starting your business plan. I think Sheila mentioned the Small Business and the Business Development Center and the Women's Business Center. They're great resources for that, to, county resources, state resources for employment, procurement, technical assistance here in Maryland. I will leave my contact information. That way, if any of you are interested in getting this list, I can share it with you, or you can go to our website. We do have a business section and a lot of this information is there as well. So just want to say thank you again for having me, and I appreciate all of you for sharing such great information.
Well, I want to thank Sydney, Miss Jones, I'm not going to say her name incorrectly, and Sheila for being with us this evening. I mean, this you all were so dynamic, and there was just, and you're so passionate about what you're doing. It is evident that being the entrepreneurs that you are have paid dividends to you, not just financially, but also personally. You are all fulfilled. And Sheila, I really, really appreciate hearing about the Aspire program. And I hope that other people, especially that live in Washington, take full advantage of that. The reason that we're doing the business panel for Black History Month, by the way, I want it very clear. Black history is celebrated 365 days of the year. February is our anniversary month, and February we do a lot of highlighting, and the theme, of course, comes from the Carter G. Woodson Scholarly Association. So the theme this year was Black Health and Wellness. But because our committee, after speaking about, realized Black health and wellness is not very good if you ain't got no money. Because if you don't have the funds, your health and your wellness could go south. So we added the business sections because we feel, first of all, it's important for people to realize you don't have to necessarily work for somebody, but you have to hear that it is okay, but it's going to take a lot of work. But if something you really want, it is possible. So I thank you all on behalf of the Greenbelt Black History and Culture Committee for being with us this evening and sharing your journeys with us. Thank you so much. This is recorded, so we're going to make sure we advertise it on YouTube so people can actually get also the additional information even following this event. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosado. Thank you all. Nice pleasure.
Sydney, I'll see you in the park.
Well,
Thank you.
you've been missing in action lately, so you don't have.
No. I've been going in the afternoon when it's warm.
Okay, that's what they all say. Y'all take care.
All right, fam.